everyone that worked in the industry around her, like her kids have taken a lot of slack for standing up for themselves and talking about the toxicity. The reality is that her reputation preceded her. And where, when you interacted with Joni, you were dismissed, it was rude, she was not a nice lady. And I remember being in Benny Hinn's office and talking about it. And
so let me start where this conversation actually started for a lot of people, on TikTok. There's a clip going around from somebody who says they worked in Christian broadcasting and they came out and said it plain. Let me play the video so you can hear exactly how she said it.
This is not going to be a popular post, but look, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but Joni Lamb, everyone knew how mean she was. Everyone that worked in the industry around her, like her kids have taken a lot of slack for standing up for themselves and talking about the toxicity. The reality is that her reputation preceded her. And where, when you interacted with Joni, you were dismissed, it was rude, she was not a nice lady. And I remember being in Benny Hinn's office and talking about it, and at first I thought it was just me. I thought she was just mean to me. Well, oh no, she's mean to everybody. So I just had to say it. Not trying to be, mean or anything like that, because, she's passed away. She's with Jesus now, but, she's passed away and I can say it. I can say it.
Now look, one person's opinion is one person's opinion. I'm not going to stand up here and tell y'all that one TikTok video is proof of anything by itself. But here's what made me stop scrolling. It's not just that one video. It's what showed up underneath it. Regular people in the comments with their own stories that nobody asked them to tell. Y'all, I want to be honest with you about what this is and what it isn't. This is not a courtroom. This is not journalism. This is people on the internet typing what they remember and what they feel. That alone doesn't convict anybody, but it's a starting point. It tells you there's a smell around this woman's reputation that ain't coming from nowhere. And the question I had after reading all that was simple. Is there anything more solid than internet comments backing this up? And y'all, there is. There's a lot more. So let's go back, way back, 2010. Because before TikTok existed, before any of us had heard the name Jonathan Lamb in this context, there was a real lawsuit filed in federal court and reported on by an actual NBC television station, NBC5 Dallas-Fort Worth. Not a YouTube narrator reading off a screen, a real news affiliate. And here's exactly what that lawsuit said. A former producer for Christian TV network Daystar claims in a lawsuit that she was berated, belittled, and harassed, and later fired for dating a male coworker. The suit claimed Joni Lamb told Thompson to end her relationship with the coworker in January 2010. For approximately 2 hours, Joni Lamb berated, belittled, and harassed Thompson, the lawsuit said. Thompson refused and was demoted, not allowed in the studio, and was told that Joni Lamb did not even want to see her face. Hold up, let me just sit with that for a second, because I need y'all to really hear it. 2 hours. A grown woman, Karen Thompson, the longtime producer of The Joni Show, her own show, working closely with her for years, and Joni spends 2 hours berating her, belittling her, harassing her over a relationship that the lawsuit says wasn't even against any company policy. And when Karen wouldn't end it, demoted, banned from the studio, and told, in her own words reported in this lawsuit, that Joni did not even want to see her face. That's cold, y'all. That's ice cold. And it doesn't stop there. The lawsuit also pointed out something that, when you look at it today, is going to make you sit up in your chair. It pointed out a double standard right there in the same family. The double standard the lawsuit named directly. The lawsuit stated that Marcus Lamb himself was never demoted after what it called an illicit relationship with a female Daystar vice president. a relationship the suit said lasted years. It also stated that Joni Lamb's own father, Bill Trammell, was never demoted after sexually harassing a female employee, a claim that turned into its own separate lawsuit filed by a woman named Jennifer Falcon. Falcon said Trammell would call her into his office for what he called quiet time, hug her too tight and too long, put his hands close to places they had no business being. Falcon's pay got cut 2 months later, right after she'd gotten an outstanding performance review. 9 days after the cut, she was fired. Trammell? He got a pay raise that same year. No discipline at all. Y'all hear what I just said? The man got a raise the same year he's accused of repeatedly touching a woman who didn't want to be touched. The woman who reported it got her pay cut and then got fired 9 days after her best review. That's not an accident. That's not a coincidence. That is a pattern. And the pattern says men in this family keep their jobs no matter what they do, and women who speak up lose theirs. Now let me bring in somebody else, because this next part is recent and it's straight from the source's own mouth. Janette Hawkins. She was Daystar's marketing director back then, and it was actually her 2010 lawsuit that first exposed Marcus Lamb's affair to the world. 15 years later, she sat down with The Roy's Report and finally told her full story. She also describes harassment by Joni Lamb and other employees of Daystar, as well as intimidation tactics like being followed by private investigators. I felt like I was spiritually raped, Janette says. And that's a strong statement to make, but it's because there was nothing left. Y'all, she left a job making $250,000 a year in secular media to go work at Daystar for $80,000 because she thought she was joining something godly. And what she says she got instead was pressure to cover up Marcus's affair, harassment when she wouldn't do it, and then blacklisted so bad she couldn't get hired anywhere, Christian media or secular media. She said it got so dark she became suicidal and had to be involuntarily committed. That's not a TikTok comment, y'all. That's a real woman naming her real pain 15 years later, still carrying it. Janette was hired in 2005 by Marcus Lamb and Janice Smith, who at the time was Daystar's VP of Programming, Marketing, and Affiliate Relations, and Janette's direct supervisor. Before accepting the job, Janette specifically asked both of them about Daystar's moral standards. Both assured her Daystar held to the highest standards of Christian behavior, citing chastity, modesty, and purity. At that exact moment, Marcus and Janice Smith had already been having an affair for approximately 5 years. In August 2007, an employee named Terry Germany discovered emails proving the affair had been going on roughly 7 years, and that Marcus had written to Janice that he could not wait to make her the next Mrs. Marcus Lamb. Daystar funds had reportedly been used to arrange the affair. Janette and a colleague brought this to marriage counselors Fred and Anna Kendall, who advised that Marcus should step down and seek counseling, but refused to confront him themselves, leaving that to Janette. Janette and her colleague then went to Bill Trammell, Joni's father, who passed it to Joni. Joni thanked Janette for bringing it forward, though the lawsuit notes evidence suggesting Joni may have already known. Janice Smith was then quietly pushed out. Daystar bought her house and paid her through a sham consulting agreement for services she never actually performed. Janette was directed to participate in covering up the real reason for Janice's departure. She refused and resigned in May 2008. Y'all let that timeline sit. She was told one thing when she was hired. The exact opposite was already true. When she discovered it and did the right thing, went up the proper chain, gave Bill Trammell the benefit of the doubt, let leadership handle it, The response wasn't accountability. It was a payout to make the other woman disappear and pressure on Janette to lie about why. Now here's where it gets truly wild. 2 days before Janette's attorney was set to file the lawsuit, Marcus and Joni, who'd been tipped off, went on Daystar's own program, Celebration, and got ahead of the story.
But there actually are 3 people who were not involved in what we're talking about today or affected by our marital challenge they're now saying that unless Daystar pays them $7.5 million, that they're going to take our story that we just shared with you to the media.
You see, these 3 people that Joni shared with you, they're trying to take our pain and turn it to their gain. But ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to take God's money and pay to keep from being humiliated again.
An extortion attempt on national religious television 2 days before the women he was accusing could even file their own lawsuit. And here's the part that should make every single one of us furious. The Bedford Police Department actually investigated this extortion claim. And on December 8th, 2010, they issued a statement saying there was no evidence of any criminal conduct under Texas law. No criminal conduct. The very next day, December 9th, Dr. Phil aired a national broadcast with Marcus and Joni repeating the same extortion accusation, never once reaching out to Janette or the other women for their side. Let that timeline sink in fully. Police clear the women of any crime on December 8th. Dr. Phil airs the accusation as fact on December 9th, 1 day later, with zero attempt to contact the accused. Robin Roberts on Good Morning America called them blackmailers. For 15 years, that label, extortionist, was the last public word ever said about Janette Hawkins. Not because it was true, because the Lambs had the platform and she didn't. Now let's get into something we touched on with Jonathan and Susie, the GPS tracker, the surveillance, and Janette confirms on the record that this exact playbook was already running on her 14 years before Jonathan ever experienced it.
It was very similar, if not the exact same situation. Yes, we were being tracked, and it's a scary thing for a female to go through. And, you know, I'm in trauma therapy, and unfortunately, that was a part of some of the trauma that, you know, I experienced. We did not have any tickets at all. But I will tell you, Julie, that in the year that was happening, I got more traffic tickets than my entire driving career or driving life.
She was also, during this exact same season, caring for a terminally ill stepmother given 6 months to live. She'd given up a secular career, making 3 times her Daystar salary. Her entire identity, by her own admission, was wrapped up in her work. Because she wasn't married, didn't have children, and her job was her sense of purpose. And then that job, that calling, that whole identity was taken from her for telling the truth. That combination is exactly the kind of total collapse scenario that leads to the darkest places a human being can go. And she's naming it publicly now, specifically so other people going through the same thing know they aren't alone and don't have to stay silent the way she did. Now let's get into something Janette said that connects directly to episodes we've already done on this show, about Daystar's finances and whether this is really a church or a business.
It's definitely a business. It's a family business. And, you know, what people don't realize is they bring people like me from the secular realm in because they start to look at it as a product. You are a product. And what's the best way? Let's get research. What's the best way that we can reach them with the product and in raising money? And it's all about financial gain. And that is a scary place to be in.
She also described Daystar using ministry resources for personal family matters. Her own part-time assistant, for example, split her hours between working for Janette and working as Joni's part-time nanny, picking up the kids from school on Daystar's clock. Meanwhile, she says, a different employee was let go for using studio equipment on a personal project, moonlighting, the exact same kind of blurred line enforced selectively depending on whose family you belonged to. And then there's the book deal. Joni reportedly received a $600,000 advance for a book and then used Daystar's own platform to promote it, with Marcus plugging it again at the end of the Dr. Phil appearance. Janette points out something a lot of people don't realize. Ministries often buy bulk copies of their own leaders' books using donor money, partly to manufacture a bestseller status, and partly because, since the publishing company is a for-profit entity, someone benefits financially on the back end of those very same ministry-funded purchases. Okay, so now let's connect all of it. Let's put 2010 right next to what's happening with Jonathan and Susie Lamb today, because this is really the whole point of the episode. 2010, Karen Thompson and Janette Hawkins, a producer berated for 2 hours over a personal relationship, then demoted and barred from the studio. A marketing executive pressured to cover up an affair, harassed when she refuses, blacklisted industry-wide. Daystar publicly calls the women who exposed wrongdoing extortionists on national TV. 2024 to 2025, Jonathan and Susie Lamb. A vice president raises concerns about an alleged abuse cover-up and a remarriage he opposed on biblical grounds. He says he's tracked, demoted, then fired. Daystar publicly calls his actions a smear campaign driven by disappointment over not becoming president. Y'all see it? Look at the words they used. 2010, extortionists. 2024, smear campaign. Different decade, same exact move. Somebody raises a real concern, and instead of looking into the concern, the institution turns around and makes the person who raised it the villain. That's not coincidence happening twice by accident 14 years apart. That's a playbook. That's muscle memory. That's a culture that knows exactly what to do every single time somebody tells the truth. And here's the part that really got me. Multiple reports say that at Joni Lamb's own funeral, a service that's supposed to be about honoring somebody's life, Pastor Jensen Franklin used that exact platform to deliver what's been described as a passive-aggressive public rebuke of Jonathan and Susie from the pulpit at her funeral. Several people who watched it called it its own form of spiritual abuse happening in real time, even after Joni had already passed. Think about the layers on that one, y'all. The pattern didn't even stop when the woman at the center of it died. It just kept running on autopilot, using a position of spiritual authority to make the family member who raised hard questions feel small one more time in front of everybody. If the pattern shows up even at a funeral, that tells you something. It's not about one person's bad mood on one bad day. That's a culture. And cultures outlive the person who built them. Let me bring this on home with the word, because 14, 15 years of the same exact pattern, that ain't really a story about one woman's personality no more. That's a story about a culture. And Scripture's got a lot to say about culture. Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Ecclesiastes 1:9. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. There is nothing new under the sun. 14 years between Karen Thompson getting berated for 2 hours and Jonathan Lamb getting tracked and fired. Different decade, different specific situation, same institutional reflex. Somebody speaks up, you don't investigate the claim, you go after the person who made it. That's not one bad moment. That's a pattern that reproduces itself generation after generation, employee after employee, unless somebody with real power decides on purpose to interrupt it.
So, was Joni Lamb mean? Let me give you all my honest answer. A real federal lawsuit covered by a real news station says she berated an employee for 2 straight hours over something that wasn't even against policy, then demoted her and told her she didn't even want to see her face. A separate named woman just months ago described harassment under her leadership that left her suicidal. And 15 years later, her own son describes the same exact sequence happening to him. Tracked, demoted, relabeled as the troublemaker. That's not a TikTok rumor, y'all. That's the documented record across multiple named sources spanning more than a decade. Now, only God knows what was really in that woman's heart. I'm not going to stand here and pretend I can see into her soul. But the pattern her own organization left behind in writing, in lawsuits, in news reports, that pattern says when people told the truth in that building, it cost them every single time. And that's a lesson for every last one of us, whether you're running a TV network or just running your own household. If the people around you learn that telling you the truth is going to cost them something, that ain't a string of bad luck. That's a culture you built. And only you can choose on purpose to build something better. Until next time, stay rooted, stay real, stay in the Word. And build something where the truth don't cost nobody everything. God bless y'all. Peace.